to everybody. This will be the first of our few video lectures for you guys. Okay, the chapter on exercise. You'll see there are a lot of slides. We'll go through the important things. Now, I'm a bit excited about this chapter. Sport and exercise psychology is my field, but I'll keep it medium for you guys. Okay, now I'm still going to ask questions for you to think about as we go through the work. I'm not just going to dump you with information, because that's how you learn. Alright, so first few questions. Why is it necessary for a health psychologist to know about exercise and physical activity? It's not just for the student group to learn what they can do and how they should be exercising, but when you get to a hospital and someone has just been told by the doctor you should start exercising or your heart disease is going to get worse, what do you do after that? What exercises does he do? How much? What intensity? How regularly? Those are the type of things you should be able to answer. And then also, how does that person motivate him or herself to start exercising? How do they maintain the exercise program? If you look at dropout rates, that's always around 50%. Alright, so that is what you'll be able to answer after today. First, a few terms just to distinguish. If you type on your phone, is that physical activity? Your fingers are busy working. Alright, but not really going to enhance your health. So physical activity, anything that you do during the day, which is not planned exercise, like walking to class, taking the stairs, walking to race, everything you do that's good for your health during the day, that moves your body. When you get to exercise, that's planned activity to exert your body. Okay, so to make you tired so that you get more health benefits from that. What is the difference between aerobic and anaerobic fitness when you talk about fitness? Aerobic fitness is for any prolonged activity in which you need oxygen to maintain it. So an activity that's similar for 10 minutes or more, like jogging or riding a bicycle or rowing on a rowing machine in a gym. Okay, so you start to breathe heavily, you need your oxygen system to sustain you. The whole system that has to do with your respiration and your blood circulation. That has to do with cardiovascular fitness, okay, or aerobic fitness. When we move to the anaerobic side, that is your burst of activities. okay, in which you exert your muscles in a short period of time, like sprinting, or when you play a sport like tennis, in which it's short, high-intensity activities with pauses in between. So important for us to understand is how to adjust the FIT principle, the principle of how regularly should a person train. When you already have a heart disease, can you jump in full out into maximum training? Or how long should you train and how regular? And what type of exercise, aerobic and anaerobic? Okay, and also how regularly? 5 days a week? Is 2 days a week enough? Right. Is it more beneficial to train moderate intensity for long periods, like 5 hours a week of jogging at 50%? Or perhaps 2.5 hours per week where you do it high intensity, where you jog at 75% of your maximum heart rate? What's more beneficial? It doesn't really matter, you can even mix the two up. So you can do one day you can jog for an hour at moderate intensity, and the next day, if you only have 25 minutes to train, you can run on 75% of your maximum intensity. When we look at maximum intensity, you can work out your maximum heart rate. Exactly what it is not that important. It's normally around 200, and then it declines as you get older. So if you want to train at 50%, you can measure your pulse. And your pulse should be around 100 beats per minute to train at 50%. So you can just look on your watch, measure 10 seconds, and then count how many times does your pulse go in 10 seconds. Okay, and then you can just factor that into 60 seconds in a minute and get your pulse. If you want to go up to 75%, the beats per minute goes up to 170, more or less, 160, 170, then you go to more higher intensity exercise. Now all of that was to give you a good background, a good understanding. Important, what we want to focus on for the tests to come are the benefits. So what you know already now, if you have to tell your father or uncle, someone who needs to start exercising, what are the different benefits of exercising? Obviously you have your physical benefits, getting fitter, losing weight, feeling better. What are the psychological benefits that go with that? Just think about that. How many can you name just now, if you get a question like that just now? So all the factors that you learn about are included in cardiovascular disease. Exercise works directly in reverse to that. So where being overweight is a risk factor in cardiovascular disease, exercise reduces your weight. Okay, when high blood pressure or irregular or high heart rate becomes a problem, exercise reduces that. So it works directly against the symptoms or the risk factors of cardiovascular disease. Some specific answers, you can also, you don't have to describe this in too much detail, you can just name it on a list basis, like it is on the slides. How many of you knew that exercise reduces your bone mass loss? It can actually strengthen your tendons as well. So whereas from after 25 or 30 your bones loses minerals, exercise can help you to maintain your bone strength. Right, now many of you may be able to relate or remember a time in which you felt bad, you felt down, or you felt stressed, and maybe a friend suggested go for a run or go for a gym session, and then you feel better afterwards. So you'll see in many programs for people that have a degree of depression or that have anxiety, when you take a multi-method approach, exercise is always a factor or a remedy that is considered or that is used to improve people's mood and affect. You can think of a few of the major diseases. What are the ones that exercise protects you against the most? You can think now, cardiovascular type of diseases, high blood pressure, diabetes. What else can you think about just now that exercise will protect you against? I think it's quite an eye-opener to see how many diseases studies have proved that exercise actually reduces the risk so much for. So you can just read through this to get a good idea. Another question for you to consider: what exactly does exercise do in your body that reduces your risk for all cardiovascular related diseases? Okay, now there are a lot of things you can consider when you start looking at your breathing. It enhances your breathing effectiveness. Okay, it increases your heart stroke volume, so you need less strokes to pump the same amount of volume. Right. In addition, you get more oxygen in each specific amount of blood, more red blood cells, so more effective in carrying oxygen. Now, here are some more details about the specific factors that exercise will reduce when it comes to risk factors for disease. So these slides go into much more detail, but you can also name them if you get a question about the benefits of exercise. So go through the longer explanation slides as well. We're able to name, yes, it balances your good cholesterol and bad cholesterol level and increases your amount of high density protein cholesterol. You may not have guessed that it actually decreases your risk for cancer as well, common type of cancers like breast cancer and colon cancer. So why would exercise reduce cancer risk? If you think about how cancer develops, the abnormal growth and multiplication of abnormal cells, how would exercise reduce your cancer risk? The answer for that is increased breakdown of the abnormal cells, and then also it balances estrogen levels, which is a causative factor in promoting or in causing the growth of the abnormal cells. So balancing that estrogen hormonal levels. Okay, now many of you may have felt sometime when you exercised extremely, you went through a week or through a day where you really pushed yourself, and exercise is supposed to boost your immune system, but you got sick the day after you played your best game or where you pushed yourself the most. And that's because moderate exercise, yes, it increases your immune system levels, but when you exercise extremely hard or on a very high intensity, that recovery period after the training actually weakens, or your immune system is weakened during that time. You broke your body off so much, that's why you need certain recovery fluids and foods, and why you need rest to build your immune system up as soon as you can. Right, now for you to think a bit, what effect does exercise have on existing diabetes? Someone that already has diabetes, it's already developed, what effect does exercise have on that? And then also, after that, in what way can exercise, or how does exercise prevent diabetes from developing in the first place? Firstly, some people are not born with diabetes but can develop type 2 diabetes. In most cases, these people have risk factors referred to as the metabolic syndrome. That is a higher tendency to have visceral fat and higher body fat percentage, and also a higher tendency to have higher blood pressure and high blood sugar levels. So for those people who haven't developed diabetes yet, exercise is very powerful in reducing the risk of developing diabetes later on. Then for someone who has type 1 diabetes or who has already developed type 2, exercise helps maintain your blood sugar levels. Now all of those was mostly focusing on cardiovascular type of fitness. glycogen system focused fitness and when you do an activity for a long period of time. How does weightlifting, gymming or resistance training, where you have to work against the pull of gravity, what type of health benefits do you get from that? Some benefits of weightlifting type of exercises is it maintains or enhances your muscle tone. So normal aging, you'll see arms get thinner, legs get thinner, but resistance training will help you to maintain that muscle tone. If you do it around twice a week, if you do it more, you can increase your muscle tone. How do you reduce the most dangerous type of fat around the mid-region, visceral fat? Some people believe if I just do sit-ups, 200 sit-ups a day, I'm going to turn my stomach into a six-pack. Not a can of six-packs. Toned muscles of six-packs. Okay. What is the best type of exercise? What is the type of eating you have to do? Right, so to reduce visceral fat, it doesn't really matter which muscles you train, but you have to do it enough that you start burning your fat resources. So just doing sit-ups to 100 a night will not be enough. You're going to train your muscles underneath your stomach, but the stomach is going to persist, it's going to remain. So it needs to be enough physical activity, duration, more than 30 minutes a day, going to an hour a day to lose the weight, frequency, most days of the week, at least 5 times a week, 5 to 6 times a week, so much that you use your normal glycogen energy resources and start using your fat resources. It doesn't really matter what type or exactly what exercise, as long as you do enough of it so that you go past that glycogen energy consumption. Now, to lose fat, you don't need to do high intensity activities. It's actually most effective between 50 and 60% of your heart rate max, but for a long period. Right, why would reduced stress help you to burn visceral fat? Okay, remember stress, especially long-term chronic stress, it increases your cortisol, which increases your blood sugar levels. So now you have more sugar running in your blood getting turned over to visceral fat because you don't use that physically because of the stress. So if you can lower your stress, you lower the amount of sugar in your blood and lower the amount of sugar that eventually turns into fat because it doesn't get used up in physical activity. I'm sure many of you have heard about your BMI, body mass index. It was a more popular measure many years ago, I think 10 or 20 years ago. It's a measure you get when dividing your length, or I think it's dividing your weight with your length. It's normally between 15 and I think 25 and 35 is when it gets very dangerous. Why is BMI not a very accurate measure of your body fat? Okay, I'll tell you a short story. I had a friend, he played hooker, and he was very well built. He spent a lot of time in the gym, so he was relatively shorter, but he was buffed, so he looked good, he was in good shape. And he went to Parexel to go do some health tests. If you can do some tests there, you get paid for participating in a study for testing out medication. And he had his eyes on doing that for some extra money. Students always broke. But then that day he came back home and he had a disgruntled look on his face. He was not happy. We asked him, hey, what's going on, man? He said, that bloody nurse at Parexel, she said, I'm overweight, my BMI is too high. Okay, so we laughed at him. We know he wasn't overweight, but it's something that really offended him. Okay, because he had more muscle mass than normal, than was natural. His weight was very high, as muscles weigh much more than what fat does. So he wasn't overweight, he wasn't fat, but according to the prerequisite for the test, he was overweight and he couldn't participate in the study. 30 minutes a day exercise for 5 days is enough to give you considerate health benefits. Is it enough to reduce your body fat? Not quite. You have to at least double that to 300 minutes a week of moderate intensity. Right. It gets more effective when you can combine it with an appropriate diet in which you reduce your calorie intake or reduce your starch and your sugar intake. That gives you the quickest results. Many people try just to diet or just to exercise, don't see results in 1 month and then just give up. Okay, but for the quickest results, combine the two. What happens to your mood when you exercise? Or how do you feel after an exercise session? Some people love it, they start to feel great while they exercise. Some people really force themselves through an exercise session because they know of the reward, of the feeling good reward afterwards. So how long do you need to exercise before you start getting that feel-good feeling? Just 10 minutes, some research says. So if you feel down, you feel depressed, you feel anxious, stressed, irritated, frustrated, only 10 minutes of exercise can already make you feel significantly better. May not be enough to give you the massive amounts of health benefits, but 10 minutes is enough to make you feel considerably better. Now if I ask you, why does exercise reduce anxiety? You learned a lot about stress now, how exactly it happens. You learned about the fight or flight response. Why does exercise reduce stress? So we'll look at a few explanations later on. But one major theory is that stress produces the fight or flight response. Okay. Now that prepares your body for action. So what happens in modern day life is we don't do anything active. Okay. We sit with that active body. So what exercise does is it directly counters the effect of the fight or flight response, because your body prepared for action and now you give it action. You use the elevated blood sugar levels, you use the adrenaline that was released in your blood, and that's why the effects of stress get reduced, because you stimulated the need for physical activity. Now this is very important. Please make sure you get this. You'll be able to explain this for the test and exam. For the exam. Okay. Why does exercise produce well-being benefits? Why does it make you feel better? So there are two major directions of explanation. One focusing on the physiological reasons and one focusing on psychological reasons of why exercise will produce feelings of well-being. Now I think I've asked you this before, but what's the difference between neurotransmitters and endorphins? You know, the feel-good neurotransmitters like norepinephrine, serotonin, and the one you've probably heard before, dopamine, the pleasure pathway neurotransmitter, the one that gets released when you take a bite of chocolate. Right, that gets released while you exercise. It's referred to as monoamines. Right. How does that differ to endorphins? Endorphins has a bigger impact because it is a hormone. It stimulates more areas of the brain. Why does it produce such feelings of euphoria? It's your body's natural opioid or painkiller. So where you get morphine, where you get heroin in synthetic form or as substances to produce the same effect, endorphins are your body's natural painkiller and feel-good hormone, and that gets released while you exercise. Now for the psychological explanation, it looks at exercise increases your self-esteem, your confidence, your feeling of mastery. Okay, so how would a person that jogs for exercise, how do you think their self-esteem or mastery would improve? You can start by the first week of exercise. you couldn't complete the route without stopping 3 times. Okay, the next week you only stop once. The third week you don't stop at all, and then the fourth week you reduce your time dramatically. So your sense of self-mastery, your self-esteem gets improved and increased. Every time you can see that you improve in comparison to the previous time. And that creates feelings of well-being and increases your self-esteem. Okay, think about someone who gyms, who does weightlifting. How can their sense of mastery improve? Simple example, pull-ups is a difficult exercise when you do it for the first time. Some people may be able to do 3 or 4, maybe 1. Okay, and then you feel bad. Shucks, I can only do 1 pull-up. But then when you do it for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, suddenly you get to 9 pull-ups, suddenly you break the barrier of 10. Okay, in 2 months you can do 20 pull-ups in 1 set, and that's how your sense of mastery and your self-esteem. Another hypothesis says exercise, it gives you an opportunity for social interaction. Right, so it definitely sounds like a worthy hypothesis, not as much research evidence for that. I think it differs from person to person. Some people really enjoy exercising with a partner or with a group. You get that sense of team spirit, that sense of camaraderie. Right? Other people prefer to exercise alone, and they still enjoy psychological benefits of exercise. Why does exercise improve your cognitive performance? Why do some people do some of their best work or have some of their best ideas after a training session? Okay. We know that exercise it promotes your blood flow to the brain, so you get more oxygen in the brain. But what we only learned recently, when I say recently, more or less 10 years ago, is that exercise actually produces brain cells. Exercise releases a growth factor that stimulates neuron production. So you can produce new neurons, and that is promoted, or that effect is much greater when you exercise.
Exercise is interesting in terms of effects on the brain because it works in about 4 or 5 different ways. One of the most obvious ways is blood flow. And so if you get your heart working, your brain's going to be filled with oxygen-rich blood and nutrients. So that's the main way that we thought it helps. The other way that's sort of interesting is it's been thought that exercise produces new neurons. And so exercise induces the production of growth factors, one's called BDNF, and it actually stimulates the production of new brain cells. Now, when I was in school 20 years ago, we were told you can't get any new brain cells. So when you're born, that's your lot. You're not going to make any more. But more recently, we found that exercise is a really good way of stimulating brain cell production. And some of these are functional. And so just this notion that something that you can do can generate new brain cells is a really great thing to think about. So we were wondering why exercise helps the brain. And one theory is it just reduces stress. So maybe it's not that your blood is coming to the brain, maybe you're less stressed, and then, and that was something that imaging allowed us to test. And so we scanned a whole lot of people with high cortisol levels. So if you're stressed, if you're angry about something, or even if you're stuck in traffic, your cortisol levels can be very high. But one of the things we found is that the people with high cortisol levels lost brain tissue faster. Well, that's a serious problem. So as soon as you know that's true, you can look at ways of reducing your cortisol. And so that's a very easy thing to do. I mean, we can get less stressed by exercising, walking, taking breaks. And so imaging established a physical connection between something in your blood, the cortisol that's a sign of stress, and actual physical changes in the brain. That's very useful to know. Take care of your brain, and there's a lot of ways we know that you can take care of your brain. You can eat a good diet, you can exercise, you can reduce stress, you can make sure you're well educated. And these things just build up a sort of mental bank account for the future. And so even though it seems like work is hard, I mean, you're building a store of brain connections that you'll need for the rest of your life. So these are practical messages that we've learned from imaging a lot of people.